Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our Buds Odyssey Foundation Spring webinar. We are so excited to have you with us, and we are so excited to have this amazing panel of guests and just be able to share what we're all about and what we're doing. We appreciate your support and are just thankful that we can have this time together. If you do have any questions, we're going to be asking if you could just ask those in the chat, and then we'll be getting to those as we can later in our time together. And first off, we have my dad, Bob Kingsbury, who is our CEO, and he's going to share about the origins of Buds Odyssey Foundation. So thank you again, and we're looking forward to a great time together.
Hello and welcome to our spring webinar. I want to introduce you to some amazing people, but first I want to tell you about our organization. I started the work of Buds Odyssey Foundation about 3.5 years ago in honor of my dad, Robert E. Bud Kingsbury. He was a World War II B-17 pilot. At 22 years old, he was shot down while returning from a bombing mission. 5 of his men were killed in the plane and 5 were able to bail out. Bud swam for over 31 hours and barely made it to shore. Unfortunately, his other crewmen perished at sea. He was held captive and taken to Stolid Luft 3, where he was held as a POW for the next 18 months. He was set free at the end of the war by General George Patton's tankers and returned to the U.S. to be discharged. Shortly after I was born, we left Chicago and moved to Southern California, where my dad became a successful plumbing contractor. My dad had an undiagnosed case of post-traumatic stress and suffered from this most of his adult life. Not only did this affect his emotional state, but our family as well. My mom finally insisted that he go to the VA for help, where after several psychiatric visits, he was able to gain partial relief. My dad had suffered the loss of his entire crew, being held as a POW, and finding out after the war that over 12,000 civilians were killed in his bombing mission. My father passed in 2009 from dementia. He and I had some rocky times together, but he was still my hero, and he was very much loved by his family. After I retired, I always knew there would be a new mission in my life. About 3.5 years ago, I met Dr. D at the encouragement from my daughter Jennifer to seek help for my insomnia. He treated me with brain pain, and after several sessions, I started sleeping better. And after 20 sessions, I started sleeping like a baby. During one of the seminars, he spoke of brain pain helping people with PTS. I honestly knew at that moment what my mission was going to be. I told Dr. D that I wanted to bring veterans and first responders to him and have my friends fund this mission. He agreed, and now we have helped over 140 of my personal heroes to have a better life. We now have affiliates in Ventura, Fresno, Tucson, as well as here in Irvine. Take a minute and imagine our country with no military, firefighters, or police officers. For me, it's impossible to imagine. We owe it to them to keep them healthy. Here at DOF, that is our mission. If you believe in me, and if you believe in these wonderful people, help us by donating or referring donors to us. Now I'd like to introduce you to my friend and advisor, Dr. Douglas DiSiena. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
You want to read it over?
Yeah, I would like to. Did you provide a script for me? No.
You still have 15 more minutes, so that was.
Uh-oh. Read it down, I guess. All right.
So I guess what we should do is describe what neurofeedback is and how that helps people and why we use an entire program here. How'd that sound to you?
Sounds great.
Okay. So for those of people who don't know what neurofeedback is, it's pretty amazing in how that it can literally be like a controlled alt delete to the brain. So it's a very complex subject and how the brain works and how it affects the neurochemistry of the body, but we can break it down into really 3 simple concepts. The first concept is something called neuroplasticity. Some people have heard of that, most people haven't. Neuroplasticity is basically the brain entrains to whatever stimulates it. So people with post-traumatic stress, it could be either one occurrence or it could be a lot of occurrences over time. But as the brain goes into what we call fight, flight, or freeze, the brain becomes completely rewired under this thing called post-traumatic stress, and then it learns to become more adept at going into this fight or flight mode. Now, as the brain doesn't get reconnected or circuited, if you will, the brain becomes very, very efficient at that, and we call this thing call it an allostatic load. The allostatic load is actually a medical definition. It basically means that the more stress the person becomes or inherits because of the post-traumatic stress, the more easily the brain is at going into what we call the fight or flight response. And this causes, like you were talking about, it creates insomnia because we're always in a heightened, alerted state. We are preparing for the next bad thing to happen. Because again, the brain's very good at it because of through neuroplastic changes, the brain has learned to be efficient at going into this thing called fight or flight. Now, not only does it change the wiring of the brain, but it literally changes the biochemistry of the entire body. And we won't get into that for now, but just to say this, under this thing called the allostatic load, people become hyper responsive, they become in a constant state of high alert, anxiety level goes through the roof, eventually it becomes depressed, insomnia, people's temper becomes shortened. In essence, they're on their last string, so or last nerve. So this is a process then that brings us to this next point, and that is how do we fix this? And there's this magical brainwave, it's called a theta wave. So, and I'll put this all together right now. So there are multiple different types of brainwaves, and every human should be in all of these brainwaves. The most highest alert brainwave is what we call the beta wave. The next one down is what's called a sensory motor rhythm, and that's similar to the high diver who's at the very, very top of a high dive, and their toes are on the edge of the board, and they're very, very, very highly focused, yet at the same time, their breath is calm, their blood pressure is low, and they're very, very intentional about their next movements. The next one down from that is called the alpha. It's called the alpha because it was the first brainwave to ever be discovered. That's commonly known as your daydream state. But then it brings us down to the next lower rhythm, and that's called the theta. And why is this theta so important? What does it have to do with neuroplasticity? What does it have to do with reducing what we call the allostatic load? And here's why. Because in a normal cycle, as we go from a beta state and we are ready to go into this deep delta state, which is where we sleep, the theta state is where we resolve a lot of stressful issues in our brain. It literally, like I show people on a phone, which you won't be able to see, but if you ever notice that if you don't take off previous apps on your phone, like my mother, who passed away at 90, she would always call me up and say, Douglas, my phone's locked up. And the reason it was locked up is because she never deleted the apps in the background. Now, just because you don't see an app in the background, it doesn't mean there are background apps taking up resources, also known as causing stress on the circuitry of your phone. It's the way our brain is. When the brain isn't resolved of previous issues, those stressors take up residence in our brain. And it creates, again, this thing called the allostatic load. So, if you will, the brain, in a healthy situation, goes through this thing called the theta wave, and it resolves previous stressors. So here's the cool thing. It'd be like this. It'd be like, not too long ago, there was a shooting that I'll never forget. It was in Las Vegas. And the reason I'll never forget it is because I had a patient who came in to see me for stress, and she literally brought in the shirt that was drenched in blood because the gentleman sitting next to her was shot. And so although I read about it and I heard about it, and now I'm hearing from this lady, my patient, exactly all the emotions that she went through, it's still difficult for me to undergo the same emotion that she went through. So that's because I heard about it, but I didn't experience it. So the thing that this theta wave does is it takes it from you actually being involved in it and having all of those charged emotions are associated with that event, And it eventually allows you to reconnect the brain with something called the prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking part, and it eventually allows you to process out the event that just happened. And again, the challenge with post-traumatic stress is it's very difficult for the brain to understand the events that happen, and so we have an irrational approach to life in thinking there's always pending danger. So what is the theta wave? It allows us to reduce and resolve those post-traumatic issues so that the brain can understand that the life out there is not scary, that there's actually some sanity out there, and you don't always have to be in a state of high anxious, high state of alert. What does that do? That reduces the allostatic load, that allows people to sleep, it allows their tolerance for family members to spill a cup of water, it allows for traffic, not if you're backed up, it allows for you to be calm and not be in a reactive state. So it allows your entire life to be lived in a calmer, what we call para, or non-fight flight response. Lastly, what does that do for the brain? Well, the longer you stay in that state, as long as we train through neurofeedback, this theta state, the brain literally becomes reset again. So then the new normal for the brain becomes calm. It becomes relaxed. And then the longer we train that, and as long as there are no longer triggers, that becomes the new normal for that person. And I don't really like that term new normal because it's really just back to the way God intended your brain to work. So in essence, to sum it all up, basically, the brain remembers whatever you teach it. So if it's taught stress, it's going to live in stress. If it's taught calmness, it will live in calmness. And we, again, do that through neurofeedback. We also do it through cranial work, chiropractic, and we also do it through nutrition to restore brain chemistry. Second thing, as the brain goes back to calm, the allostatic load eventually resolves. So just like the cell phone on my mother's phone when it got locked up, people's brains become free. They're free to experience life and they're free to see the beauty that's out there and to really have a restored relationship. So often I hear when I have our veterans, first responders, and my patients, one of the things that I hear most often when they're through the program is that they are now able to have amazing relationships again. And I think there's really, I think that's one of the best gifts we offer our people, is for them to live in kind, loving relationships once again. And to sum it all up again, the lastly is, once we have this, once we teach the brain how to be in a calm parasympathetic state, the brain tends to live that way in perpetuity. So now the gift that we've given these veterans and first responders doesn't go away after they leave. The gift of neurofeedback, of this cranial work and the nutrition stays with them in perpetuity. So now we've basically taken an individual without any invasive drugs or surgery, and we've allowed them to be restored from a state of stress to a state of calm, a state of dis-ease to a state of ease. And we do that in as little as 2 months.
Wonderful. Done?
I think so.
Okay. All these wonderful people have been through our program, and I'd like to just ask each of them to give us one or two items that has made a difference in their life. And I'd like to start with my friend Travis Wade. And by the way, I didn't know hardly any of these people before they started. They've all become lifelong friends with me, and I'll be there for them as long as I'm still standing. And I hope they feel the same way about me. We have a close-knit group of people, and everybody that goes through our program has something to share. And by getting them together and talking together, we can make sure that everybody understands that they're not alone. So I'll start with you, Travis.
All right, thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. So Bud's Odyssey came to me, and Bob came to me through an organization called Save a Warrior. My good friend Matty Fiorenza, who is a firefighter, suggested that they had a follow-up to Save a Warrior that could definitely help with some of the issues I was still struggling with. Coming out of a program like Save a Warrior, it's a 5-day program, but it's not a fix-all. And that was difficult because you come out of that program on a high, and then you go back to the real world, and you still struggle with some of the issues that, no program that's 5 days long can permanently fix. So, I got this information from Maddie. He introduced me to Bob, Dr. D, the staff, and everybody here. And it was like, well, I have no idea what this is, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Dr. D did a good example of explaining some of the issues via your cell phone and apps, but I basically had a lot of apps stored in my brain, and I didn't really know how to get rid of them. So the brain pain for me was interesting, and it was different because I couldn't understand the science of it, but once you put yourself in the seat and you go through the process and you get hooked up and you find yourself in a state of like a meditative state, you're able to relax, and you do feel after every session that you somewhat created a reset. And what that necessarily reset for the individual, it really depends on the individual's unique experiences. For mine, it was really bad nightmares, night terrors, grinding in my teeth, things that I just couldn't control. Like, you're sleeping, and who knows what kind of dreams you're going to have. You can't predict this. You can't project it. So specifically for me, it was really going through the brain pain and noticing after only a few sessions that I started having less and less of those night terrors. I stopped grinding my teeth. After 20 sessions, I've pretty much eliminated that from my life. So I only can contribute that to the work that Dr. D and Bob have put together. And without it, I would still probably have major issues with sleeping, and that's something that I don't know a lot of programs can fix. I think that's a real issue for a lot of people on the planet, first responders, veterans. A good night's rest is absolutely pivotal to your mental state. So I still have a lot of the same issues that we all struggle with, but that was one that definitely helped me get over a big hump in my life, was just finding a way to have a good night's sleep. And so I thank you, gentlemen, for that.
Thank you.
And that's my story.
How about Chris and Jennifer? Would you like to talk for a minute?
Sure. My name's Chris Thomas. I'm a retired United States Marine, spent 23 years in the Marine Corps, of which did 4 combat deployments, 2 to Iraq and 2 to Afghanistan. I noticed about 15 years ago that I started getting really bad anxiety, and it continued to get worse and to get worse, to the point when I learned about Bud's Odyssey, much like Travis said, I didn't know anything about the science behind it, but I was at a point where I didn't care. Let's do it. There's got to be some kind of relief there. But prior to coming here, I would get up in the morning and I would probably be about 70% full of anxiety, just getting in the shower, getting ready for the workday. And then you add the workday on top of that. And by the end of the day, I was just exhausted. But I can tell you as a testimony, I've got probably now 70% less anxiety than I did before. And anytime that I do feel it coming on, where it used to last all day long, now it might last an hour or two, and I can kind of get through it and carry on with my day. So it worked for me. It didn't resolve everything, as Travis said, but my quality of life is a lot better. And I thank this foundation and Dr. D's office for that.
Jennifer, how has it affected the dynamics of your family?
Well, I come from a unique place because I haven't gone through the actual program myself, but my son did for his ADHD, and then my husband did for his PTS. And we were talking brains on opposite ends of the spectrum at that point. And to watch them go through it together was, one, they really bonded over it, so that was amazing. But for Chris, he wasn't sleeping at night. He was, he would have like all these like movements in his sleep where like I knew that, he said he never had night terrors, but there was stuff going on. And he wasn't eating, he would barely eat. But then after going through treatment, like he eats normal meals now. He's like more involved in the family. It's really been great. And like for our teenager, he's now dreaming, he's more focused. Like I never had dreams before going through neurofeedback, which was amazing. So like Dr. D does amazing stuff.
I still have a letter that you gave me from one of his teachers, and I will cherish that for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, would you like to give a shout out to the service dog organization that you belong to?
Yeah, so one of the ways that I came to Bud's Odyssey was I was fortunate enough to be linked up with the Patriotic Service Dog Foundation. They provide highly trained service dogs to veterans and first responders who could benefit from the use of a service dog. So part of that foundation is, in order to be part of their program, you have to be going through some type of therapy. And that's when I was introduced to Bud's Odyssey through a family friend, which is actually Bob's sister. But when she first saw that I was doing that was when she put us in contact with one another. So, the two foundations that I've had the great fortune to be associated with have done great things for myself and my family.
Yeah, that's been a game changer for sure. I can't even really put it into words.
AJ, I think, were you the second person that went through our program?
I was the second person.
So this is over 3 years ago, and I think he still would say it's a benefit to him right now. So he's also my favorite barber. And,
He didn't know how to cut hair before, but
Okay.
even though he's still waiting for it to grow, he says he'll give me a haircut someday. All right, let's hear it, buddy.
So I met Bob through Jeff, who was your first veteran, and when I came through this program, this neurofeedback is just pretty much a tool in the toolbox to life. I want to say it was like maybe my second or third session. I had my first night of sleep in over like 5 years. Had really bad anger issues, and I'm just very mellow and calm now. And through neurofeedback allowing me to get my sleep back, it has been a success in my life. I do Ironman, so obviously sleep is crucial to my recovery, and I couldn't imagine doing them now if I was still sleeping how I was sleeping for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And then also having stress, running a business, opening businesses, and also doing the Ironman stuff. If I'm not sleeping, there's no way I can function.
Right.
So because of neurofeedback, along with all the other tools, Save a Warrior, and everything else that I'm doing, it has allowed me to success in my life.
Do you think it's helped you in your business life?
100%. Obviously, running a business, managing employees, and also trying to my personal life. Before, I was always a ticking time bomb, and now I'm able to better lead my men who work for me and everything else. So yeah, I became a better boss, became a better dad, especially my son even noticed it a lot more because I used to, again, I had the anger issue. So now I'm able to just be more calm, more present, and able to be a father. So
That's one of the things that excites me the most is the relationships with fathers and mothers and their kids.
yeah,
That's so important to me. There's nothing more important than your family. And if it's helping you with that, it's a phenomenal success as far as I'm
100%.
concerned.
yes, sir.
Thanks, pal.
We
Yes,
can
sir.
relate to the time bombs.
Okay, Jessica, like to have her talk for a few minutes.
Yes, Jessica, I work for an Orange County Police Department. Been an officer for about a little over 20 years, and I was part of a fellowship. It was a First Responders Fellowship, and that's where I learned that there's a place called Bud's Odyssey, and they provide neurofeedback and brain pain. It was a different language to me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Brain, just learning about how the brain functions and the health of it. To me, that was just, what do I need to do? So in the fact that it provided, neurofeedback for first responders at no cost, that was, of course, I'm going to take that, opportunity. And I'm glad I did, because it did. Other first responders did recommend that maybe I should try that for my PTSD. I had major PTSD. I had anxiety, depression, and I had intrusive thoughts. And I was at the end of my rope. And so I just want to thank you, Bob. I don't mean to get emotional, but
It's okay.
I needed answers. I needed answers, and I needed to find out what I needed to do to take care of myself, because I was a mess. And when I first called Bob, and I talked to him a little bit about my situation, I obviously didn't trust because I had trust issues, and he made it sound like, hey, we just want to get better, and I have my family here too, and they could also be testimony as to how I've changed. So when I talked to you, Bob, I really thought, oh yeah, what's the catch here, and I'm just so glad I did kind of trust you, and I decided, okay, I'm going to go, and I went to your office, Dr. D, and it's been very organized, very professional. I felt safe, so I stayed. And there was a seminar, there was 3 classes that teach you on how to take care of your brain, and to me, I need the details. So I first went to the workshops, and I went to the workshops a couple of times for the brain because I didn't understand it. It was just too complicated for my brain to comprehend. For me, I guess I got used to feeling like it was like a tight rubber band around my brain, and it was just part of my norm. And I was at, the on switch on, I was on all the time. I just I didn't know anything less. I didn't know what calm was. I didn't know what being in the present, being, appreciating the sky, the wind, nature. That was, to me, that had gone out the window. I was just constantly on, and I was having the nightmares and things like that. Just being educated on how important it is to take care of yourself from the inside really does matter, and how the brain is probably the most important organ in your body, and it's just all those different things I learned coming through your office, Dr. D, and through Odyssey. I didn't realize that was that important. I mean, you asked me about criminal law and everything else. I'm very versed on that, but taking care of myself was just not my priority, and it should have been. So that's what I learned coming to the office. I sat in that chair, that no gravity chair, and I was looking at a screen, and it was like a spa day for me. Hearing it was, I had nothing else going on. I'm just sitting there, just looking at the computer screen, and it relaxed my brain. It helped me, and I was able to start to feel like my brain tingling a little, and I never felt anything like that before. So it was different, and I'm just glad that I did do the 20 sessions, and I was getting answers. So I continued, and I was very grateful for Bud's Odyssey and Dr. D's, their whole staff is professional, and learning about nutrition, that too, I was, all these toxins and things like that. I was like, I was not aware of all that affects.
And I'm still learning.
Internal, so we'll get to that. But it's not just one thing, it's a lot of things, and you have to be willing to make the changes, and you have to want it to, want answers, and, I'm still learning stuff now, and I'm just really grateful that I didn't just trust it so much that I didn't take the opportunity to go in. I'm just glad that I found your foundation. So.
These people up here
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Have become my trusted friends and advisors, and they can count on me anytime, and I know that I could call any of them up, and they would be there to help me as well. So we have a great bunch of people. I could bring another 100 people in here with similar stories, and it's really incredible. And I owe most of this to the brilliant mind of Dr. DiSiena. He's helped so many of us, and I want to say, especially that chiropractic and nutrition has been a really big help for people, and I don't want to discount that. We do that here at Irvine, and it's helped a lot of people that had problems they didn't even know about, especially with nutrition. So I want to make that point.
Can I speak to that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I thank you for bringing that up, by the way. So, one of the things we like to do, as you know, the mission for me personally was always to give hope where hope is lost. And not only do we want to do a 360 approach, We want to allow for people's brain health to get better. Of course, you need to do the whole thing. You can't just expect them to do that. You also have to produce the brain's information. You also have to restore vertebral artery supply to the brain through the proper neurological chiropractic. You have to do that cranial work. All that stuff is what allows for people to get maximum benefit. But I think even maybe the most important thing is the fact that having understanding that the body and the brain is designed to be well and not to be sick, is that we actually empower people with that truth. So they come in here and they have basically a briefing in how the body works and why it works and why everybody has a possibility to be well. So we have what we call a doctor-doctor relationship. We don't have doctor-patient relationship. So not only do they come through and get the care, but you come through and become empowered, right? So that you understand how to take care of yourself. So I think that's one of the things I'm really proud that Buzz Odyssey provides for people not just the neurofeedback, but it provides empowerment in perpetuity.
I think we have a little extra time. I was wondering if you could explain, which I think is really important, that each person, when they come in, the going through the therapy is individualized to them specifically, that no two people get the exact same treatment. And just to go through that briefly.
That's a great question. So everybody who first comes through, they first get an initial consultation, as you all know. So we assess where a person's state of readiness is. That's key, because people have to be ready. And number two, we go through an assessment which literally takes about an hour. So we actually have an assessment that's individualized so that when a person comes out of the assessment, then we provide a protocol that's specific to their current brain functionality. Beyond that, we do some lab testing. So now not only do they get the neurofeedback, which is individualized, and everybody, it's down to literally the second, as if you remember. AJ, I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, we also provide lab testing. So now we optimize the brain chemistry to support the brain training. It's like, again, if we're trying to build the muscle and we don't have any nutrition or protein to support the new muscle growth, then we're not going to get the benefit. So we need brain health to allow for the brain to respond to the neurotherapy. So again, that's why it's critical that it's an individualized approach. There's not any two brains which are exactly similar. So if no two brains come into us similar, then how can we treat people equally the same? So that's why I love the fact that we have a very personalized approach. I think that's one of the reasons why I think we're close to 100% of people who come through our program are successful in the program.
Absolutely. We've had a few people that, due to other activities in their life, they weren't able to complete the program. Everybody that stayed with the program has had positive results, every single one. So I'm very pleased about that.
And I would also say that a lot of people who are first responders and veterans, some people tend to self-medicate. And so now that we have an issue with that as well. And I can tell you the success of that. There's people who don't go through our program, if you just do a 12-step program, it's less than 50% people remain sober after 1 year. After the program that we do, we're having over close to 80% of people after 1 year remain sober.
That's amazing.
And it's also, if I keep the stats longer, I'd love to see the more we refine the program, that number is actually going up. Also, I wanted to make everybody aware that at least our program is constantly being refined. We are constantly optimizing the program. So literally every day, our program is getting better, and we're finding there's new science, there's new nutrition, there's new neurology, and we are as current as you can possibly be. It is my life's mission to make sure that everybody who comes to our program gets the best possible protocol.
Do you have any questions from the audience?
None.
We must have done a really good job then.
Agreed.
PJ, have you thought of anything else you'd like to say?
I just, you know, obviously with the nutrition and everything else, that's what I preach when I speak to like veterans that I come in contact. When you get the mind right, the body will follow. I want to say maybe when I was in Bud's Odyssey, I was about like 250 pounds, waist 38. Now I'm about 180 and waist 29.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
amazing.
Yeah, so I just totally, my mind was everywhere. It clears it, organizes it, and therefore everything else follows in my life with it.
Terribly envious of his body. You may not be able to tell while we're sitting down, but I would trade him in a heartbeat.
But yeah, it's with the sleep, the mind, everything else, and then on top of that, like, it builds up your confidence.
How about you, Chris and Jennifer? Anything else that you thought of while we're sitting here?
I think the confidence thing is huge. Before, Chris would always just want to be like in the house and not going anywhere, but building up this confidence between having that anxiety at a level that is so much more manageable and normal, is what you said. Like just starting out the day at a level that he should be starting out the day at has really made him more confident. He's not that ticking time bomb.
Mm-hmm.
He can engage with the family, do things with the family, and it's been huge. He talks about things now. Like, before all of this, yeah, there would be no way that we would ever get him up here at this table,
Sure.
or share with other people on the street. I mean, like, we just got back from a trip, and he would be outside, just talking to strangers about what you can do to better yourself and better your health and everything that he's learned. So I think that it's monumental. It speaks volumes, and I'm so thankful for you.
And this isn't
for you
unique
both.
just to you to bring your son or daughter in. We've had several people. They were so happy with the results that they brought their children in and paid for it themselves. And everyone that's done that, it's been worth it for them.
Oh, it's been huge. I mean, our son has totally changed. He's been able to use his his anxiety was different because he was trying to like wake up his sleepy brain. So I learned. So after going through Dr. D's health, I'm like, okay, I have an overactive brain and an underactive brain. I'm in the middle, about to lose my mind. So what can you help me out with, Dr. D? But it was really amazing, and he's, we haven't been able to get him completely off of his ADHD medication, but with the supplement, I mean, he still takes the supplements that Dr. D has,
the best
put him
recruiter.
on, and it's great. We have not had to, with him going through he went through it, what, 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
About 3 years ago. So now he's 14, about to be 14, huge in puberty, and we have not had to up his medication at all.
Nice.
We're trying to tailor it back, and that's what our ultimate goal was.
The best recruiters that we have are the people that have been through the program, because there's nothing finer than for them to refer somebody to us and they get in the program based on the fact that the results were very good for themselves. So it's really been a special journey for me, and I plan on doing this for a long time. We have plans to expand and move into other states as our funding comes in, and that's really, we have a program, we have places to go, people that need to see us. It's just a matter of the funding. So anybody that can help us with that, we appreciate. So if anybody has anything else to say.
I just want to make it also really clear that I donate all my time to the program, and you do as well. You don't take an executive fee.
Nobody does.
So the amount of money that is donated, that goes directly to taking care of these heroes, is probably 99.9% of the funds. So there is no wasted overhead cost. And so I just think it should be very transparent that when people do donate money, that they know that almost 100% of that money is directly going towards literally restoring a hero's life. So when they donate, it goes to those people, and we are directly saving lives if the monies are donated.
Okay. Thank you so much. Jennifer, if you got something you want to add?
Yes, well, just wanted to thank everybody for being here today, and thank you to my dad and Dr. D for planning this event. And thank you so much to all of our panelists, to Chris and Jennifer and AJ, and for Jessica and for Travis. Travis has left the building, but thank you all so much for being transparent and just sharing your healing journey here with us today. And we just wanted to let you know that, of course, you can donate through our website, which is budsodysseyfoundation.com. And if you have any questions, you can email us at info@budsodysseyfoundation.com. If you know anybody that is either yourself that's having trouble, or if you know anybody that needs help, please let us know as well. And we also have a new way of donating. If you like online shopping, we have a partnership now with a organization called Lifestyle of Giving, and you can go to lifestyleofgiving.com and just register. It's super easy, and you can just do your regular shopping as you would. It has Macy's and Nordstrom's and all kinds of different hundreds of stores that you can just shop, and there's no extra charge, but a percentage of those sales will go to us. And also there's gift cards. You can buy different types of gift cards, and again, a percentage of that will go to us. So we're thankful for this new partnership. And again, just thankful for you, for your support, and for helping our warriors to find healing.
We did have one question.
Okay.
Gerardo Torres has a question. Let me see. He raised his hand and he put it down. Let me ask.
So while we're waiting, I just want to say that.
Hello?
Oh, there it is.
Hi, Gerardo.
Hey, this is Gerardo Torres. You guys call me Jerry. First of all, I want to thank everyone. I commend you guys for having the courage to share your testimonies. It's very empowering to me. One thing I learned, and is we're very blessed to have you, Bob, and everyone on your team, Dr. D. I learned, early on that, there's a life outside of the badge and gun. And oftentimes, at least for me in law enforcement, we want to always, maintain ourselves physically looking good enough, but we forget about our mind. So I'm really excited, for the expansion of Bud's Odyssey, especially, it would be amazing if, God's willing, it's brought up to, academies, in fire and police, because oftentimes, at least for me, I was going through a lot, and I just kept charging through. So I'm in a better place now, and I'm very blessed to be part of this organization. So thank you guys.
Thank
you, Jerry.
Appreciate the comment.
So I was just going to say that the reality of where we're at is, as we know, because I look at the service dog and it says 22, and that represents the 22 people, veterans, every single day who take their life, and that number's probably growing, I would imagine.
I think during COVID,
Right. I know that during COVID we've had increased deaths of despair, and there's the amount of first responders that take their life every day is actually the number is not even calculable, because the minute somebody is retired or put on leave and they take their life, it doesn't get counted towards a suicide. And I just want to put out a petition out there that for about $2,000 we can literally save a life. And that seems to me a relatively small amount of money to, when I say save a life, I mean like literally potentially save a life. We have a lot of people coming into our program, and I meet with them, and within 3 minutes they are in tears and a mess, as you said. And they tell me that they are literally at the end of the rope, and they may not be able to go on. And that's why it's so important to have that first meeting, to let them know there is hope. And so for you watching, if it's capable, or if you know somebody who is, we can really use the support, because 160 people going through the program is amazing. That's 160 lives that were saved but how many more countless others are there right now who are suffering, who today, frankly, may be their last day? And they may have gone through what we've described as an allostatic load that may be to the point where it becomes incalculable to them that they can endure that much more stress, and so they give up. So my plea for anybody looking at this is let's do the best we can. These are people who put their life ahead of others. These are people who run towards danger, not away from it. These are people who allows us to have freedom in this country, and I just feel like it's an honor to be able to give back to these heroes.
That's the way I feel exactly.
Agree.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, and hope you have a good day today. We're going to be uploading this to YouTube, and we'll be sending that information out to everybody so they can watch it or refer somebody to watch it at a later date. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks.
Love you. Okay. Bye, folks.